Today we've got the 2024 U.S. Senate prediction for the month of July. We've got some primaries out of the way, but we've still got a bunch coming up. As always, things can change, especially after that debate, and it's difficult to project ahead 4 months, but let's dive into it. So Republicans looking for just one seat for a 50-50 tie. That alone would be enough for them to win control if they're also able to win the White House. If they get more than that, then it doesn't matter. But let's start with the safe states. These are expected to be over a 10-point margin and not competitive. So the Democrats are going to get Washington and California. Now, what about New Mexico? There's a reasonable chance here this could get under 10, but for right now, I'm going to say Martin Heinrich, the incumbent Democrat, is just a little bit more likely to win this by over 10. In Minnesota, Amy Klobuchar is heavily favored to win re-election. It might not be by a gigantic landslide like she's done in the past, but she's still going to get this by a safe margin. Now, in the East Coast, Maine and Vermont have independent senators who caucus with the Democrats. To make it easy, we're going to say those are safe Democrat. It's also going to be safe in New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Delaware. Republicans have little to no bench here, and for right now, Democrats should hold those by easy, safe margins. Real quick, I don't want to forget about Hawaii. There's no chance that could possibly be competitive, and the last state is going to be New Jersey. Now, this one you can make a case that it gets down to likely. It's an open seat. The Republican nominee is going to be Curtis Bashaw. He was not endorsed by Trump. That might help him in a general election. Plus, embattled incumbent Bob Menendez might still be running as an independent. I don't expect him to do much, but he could keep expected winner Andy Kim under 10. So I think it's completely reasonable to put this at likely, but similar to New Mexico, I'm going to say this just barely stays over 10. Now we can do the safe states for the Republicans. First, we've got Utah. Now we know that's going to be John Curtis for the GOP, then Wyoming, North Dakota, Nebraska, and the Nebraska special. Now the regular election there has Deb Fischer. There's an outside chance the independent candidate Dan Osborne can make it a little bit more competitive. If that develops, I'll revisit the rating, but for now I think it's more likely that stays over 10. Next door in Missouri, there's a chance it gets under 10, but again, I think it's more likely it stays over 10. Also Indiana, Tennessee, Mississippi, and finally West Virginia. That looks like Jim Justice is going to be succeeding Joe Manchin, and that is also going to be a flip and a pickup for the Republicans. Now we can head down to the likely states. These are going to be between a 5 and a 10-point margin. For the Democrats, let's start in Virginia. Now we know it's officially going to be between Tim Kaine and Hung Kao for the Republicans. Kaine is absolutely the favorite. You might even put this into safe territory. For right now, I'm going to say this one is just under 10, and it's going to be likely. Their neighbor to the north, Maryland, has an open seat, and this is the big Larry Hogan race against Angela Alsobrooks. We've gone over Hogan many times. He's well known. He's been popular as governor. He's the best chance the Republicans have here. But with presidential turnout for Senate, this is going to be a very different race. Hogan is the underdog, and he does have the Trump endorsement that might actually hurt him in this race. Either way, the fact that I already have this is not safe for the Democrats is a pretty big victory for Larry Hogan. Everything would have to go right for Hogan to be able to flip this state. Right now, he's not there, but he's going to do way better than Trump is at the top of the ticket. This is going to be similar to Virginia. I have it at high single digits, probably 9 to 10 points, but it is going to go likely for the Democrats. And also north of there in Pennsylvania, this is Bob Casey against David McCormick. Casey, longtime incumbent, well-known family name. Casey is probably a good fit for this state, and it's tough for me to imagine him going down. Just 2 years ago, we saw John Fetterman defeat Dr. Oz. Fetterman had a terrible debate. It was an open seat, but the Democrats still won that relatively comfortably. In this, maybe it's just me, but I don't think David McCormick is going to be the guy to take down Casey. I've seen some polls that almost show it competitive, but for right now, I still think Casey would win this by at least 5 points. Maybe it's not 8 or 9 anymore, but I think he's going to get it by a likely margin. Now we've got the likely states for the Republicans. There's 2 of them. First, we've got Texas. This is Ted Cruz and Colin Allred. Cruz has liabilities. The state has moved away from the Republicans over the past couple of decades, but Cruz did survive in the blue wave of 18. His popularity might be past the point where it's bottomed out. I don't think it's impossible for Cruz to go down, but everything would have to go right for Allred, and I don't think that's going to happen at this point. Cruz is going to get it likely. And then we've got Florida. For a long time, I kept this at leans for Rick Scott. Last time, I finally bumped it up to likely. I did see the one poll that showed it potentially competitive for Scott. Democrats still have a primary, but it looks like it's going to be Debbie Mucarsel-Powell. I think Scott is far from being super strong, but he has won some close races in the past. He took down incumbent Bill Nelson in 2018, and that was a blue wave. So we'll see what happens, but I had this as likely for Scott. And now we could go down to the lean states, and these are going to be under a 5-point margin, but more than 1 point. And let's go through these individually. We'll start in Nevada. Now we know it's going to be Jackie Rosen against Sam Brown. I've seen Rosen ahead with big leads and with small leads. I think it all evens out to an easy lean rating. Next door in Arizona, there's still primaries, but it looks like it's going to be Ruben Gallego and Kari Lake. Lake, I I saw avoided debating her primary opponent. I don't think it's going to hurt her much, but in the general election, Gallego is going to be favored, so he's going to get it by a lean margin. Now we've got Wisconsin. Here's another state where the Democrats are going to start off with an advantage. Incumbent Democrat Tammy Baldwin looks like she's likely to go up against Republican Eric Hovde. Hovde ran back in 2012, but looks like he's doing it again. I think it's uncontroversial to say that Baldwin is going to have an advantage. It is Wisconsin. It could be competitive, but this is going to be leans for the Democrats. And next door to Michigan, again, we still have primaries, but for this open seat, it looks like it's going to be Alyssa Slotkin for the Dems and probably Mike Rogers for the Republicans. I don't think there's a lot to say. Slotkin is going to get this with a lean rating. And now we've got two states left, Montana and Ohio. Both of them have three-term incumbent Democrats running for re-election. Previously, I had both of these as tilt for the Democrats. In Ohio, I still think it's a little bit early for Bernie Moreno. I'm waiting to see what he does as we get more into the summer. Sherrod Brown is the best Dems can do here, and of course he is going to be running well ahead of Joe Biden. Now the question is, can he run potentially 10 points ahead of him? It's a very uphill climb. It's highly up for debate. Until I get a better sense of the national environment and I see a little bit more out of Moreno, I'm going to still leave this as a tilt for Brown, the Democrat. And last, in Montana, Jon Tester, the Democrat. Again, he's a decent fit for the state considering it's fairly red on a presidential level. So Tester is again going to have to run well ahead of Biden. Republicans have Tim Sheehy. Now, I don't think Sheehy is a top-notch candidate, but I do think it's better for the GOP than putting up Matt Rosendale again. Now, there already was a debate in this state between Tester and Sheehy. I did watch it, and I thought they both did a fairly good job. I might even have been expecting a little less out of Sheehy than he delivered. So you could go back and forth. Tester's been in the state for generations. Sheehy's got military experience. Trump is likely to carry the state well into double digits. I've heard a lot of different comments about how Tester can't possibly run that far ahead of Biden, and I did have it as tilt blue, so I do think it's extremely competitive either way. But after the debate and how far Tester is going to have to run ahead of Biden, I think for right now I'm actually able to flip this state and put it as a tilt for Sheehy, the Republican. So still very competitive. We got 4 months to go, but that would give the Republicans 51 seats, Democrats at 49. I think it's really all going to come down to Ohio and Montana and how far ahead of Biden those Democrats can run. They could easily both go down, maybe by even more than 5 points. After that, Republicans do have a few other targets out there, but Democrats are going to start with an advantage in all of them. After that, Republicans might have a reach target in Pennsylvania, Maryland, or Virginia if they're having a phenomenal night and it's a big red wave. Democrats really don't have anywhere to expand on here. Just Texas and Florida would only be potentially competitive if somehow a blue wave ends up developing. So you can make a couple other tweaks on here if you'd like. There's a case to be made for some of these specific races in different states, and I always look at every race in every state as I fill out the map. But for right now, this is how I think it would go, so let me know in the comments. How's your July Senate map looking? Is it a little bit better than this map, or do you also have Montana staying with Tester? And if it's Biden, is he going to drag down Senate Democrats? And how far behind them is he going to run? Let me know what you think down below on your way out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.